Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to this session themed Independence and the New Frontiers of Competition in Fuel Retail. This session will provide insight into the drivers of energy transition, impact of artificial intelligence on consumer demand patterns, and suggest plausible scenarios for sustainable fuel retail operations and network development. Speakers for this session are Mrs. Elizabeth Aliuda, Managing Director, NNPC Retail. Mrs. Aliuda has over 32 years' experience in the downstream oil industry, 26 of which were spent at the Pipelines and Products Marketing Company of NNPC. Recently appointed as the Managing Director, NNPC Retail Limited, Mrs. Aliuda has earlier served as its General Manager, Sales and Marketing. She's happily married with children. Mr. Nnamdi Obiagu, Managing Director, Eterna PLC. Mr. Obiagu is a mechanical engineer whose career trajectory testifies of versatility and love of challenges. Between 2001 and 2014, he worked at Mobil Oil Nigeria PLC, serving in various capacities including lubrication sales engineer, fuels supply manager, as well as fleet logistics manager. He joined Eterna PLC in July 2017 as General Manager and Head of Lubricants. He was appointed to the board of Eterna in January 2020 as the Executive Director, Chief Operating Officer. He became company's Managing Director in August 2020. Mr. Vishal Primlal, Director, South Africa Petroleum Retailers Association, SAPRA. Vishal is a people's person and a courageous risk taker who enjoys developing brands and driving projects that are linked to societal changes. He is an accomplished media spokesperson and a strong consumer advocate. Previously, he led South Africa's Motor Industry Workshop Association, where he grew membership to over 2,500 workshops. He is currently navigating change and turnaround strategies for the South African Petroleum Retailers Association. Dr. Billy Gillis-Harry is the President, Petroleum Retail Owners Association of Nigeria, Petrowan. He is currently President of the Coalition of South-South Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture for CIMA. He is Vice President, responsible for oil and gas in the Nigerian Association of Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NACIMA, and National President, Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria. He is the CEO, Billview Energy Limited, and sits on the board of some federal agencies, including the Oil and Gas Free Zones Authority of Nigeria.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to this session, and good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We will start the session with the presentation from Mr. Nnamdi Obiagu to kickstart the session. Mr. Obiagu, please.
Thank you, Inam.
Thank you.
Let me wait for the slides to come up. So thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure speaking to all of you. I'll try and go through the presentation relatively quickly. I'm going to take it in 4 different stages. First, I want to explore this definition of what is an independent. And pardon my industry colleagues, some of you already know a lot of what I'm going to say, but I think some of our attendants might need to have a benefit of understanding what is an independent in this as considered in the industry. Then I'll walk through some of the evolution of how the marketers So walk through, see how the evolution of the marketers came about. Some of the things we'll cover here will also be relevant in terms of how we compete going forward. Then I'll talk about the current the current areas of competition before I look into what is to come. So quickly going into an independent, if we go really far back, how the division in the industry where we started calling some companies majors and some independents, or if you really go back in industry, started off where you had some legacy international oil companies, the IOCs formed companies in the downstream in Nigeria, heritage companies like Heritage Mobile, Total, BP. So over the years, a lot of those names are no longer existent in the industry, but originally they formed the bigger companies that dominated the downstream, and they were referred to as the majors. Then the independents were pretty much the other smaller indigenous players in the market, and that's how that name protocol started. If you go back to the more immediate past, those institutions further cemented this by organizing themselves into groups where you have the majors, most of them are under Mormon, and then the others, the independents, went under Ipman and Dapman to form their own blocks. But now as the industry evolved, you found a lot of those independents started becoming rather big, and the definitions that usually define the major and independent as in being publicly listed, number of site counts, became the independents who are now having infrastructure and investments and structures that rival the majors. So if you now go to the next slide, please, where you go to the current situation in terms of how you define an independent and a major, you find those lines have significantly blurred, where you have some of our so-called independent companies, the Shafas, the Ranos, the NIPCO, Povas, and a lot of the members of Dapman becoming relatively quite large companies compared to those who were traditionally called majors. So you find out where I think for the purpose of this, I'd rather not say the independents are competing or what they will do to compete, but I think the so-called independents are now sufficiently big enough where it's now a complete industry issue. So the areas and points of competition I'll discuss will revolve around the whole industry and not just limited to the independents. So I think right now I'll just refer to us as all marketers for the purpose of this. Next slide, please. So, but now in front of understanding the past, let's understand some of the things that helped the industry get to where it is. And some of these things are extremely relevant now as the industry moves forward in terms of what we have to do to sustain it. One of the key factors that drove the evolution of the industry is the fact that as time went on, you found out Nigerians gained the capacity to run downstream companies without any form of foreign support, which allowed the indigenous companies to grow. So right now in the industry, you have Nigerians pretty much running majority of the companies and running them relatively well. So the influence of the IOC diminished, and going forward into the future, I think this is a trend that's going to continue because we have in Nigeria the capacity to run downstream companies completely independent of ourselves. So this is a factor that's also going to drive competition in terms of how you find a lot of the offerings and what's going to happen is more tailored to the Nigerian palette. Other things that affected the evolution are regulations. And some of these regulations are like the NOGIC Act, which encourages the participation of Nigerians in the oil industry. It's had huge impact in the upstream and also significant impact in the downstream. So regulations like this, which encourage local participation, helps the industry evolve. And of course, we'll talk about other regulations like the PIB and so on. So regulation has been a significant part of what has driven the evolution of the downstream and development of marketers. Then ironically, one of the things that helped the local participation increase was the regulation of prices. Because what it did was it allowed or it prevented the bigger companies in the past from leveraging on their economy of scale to squeeze out smaller players. Where you had a uniform price and margin structure, as long as you're able to participate, you had some level of protection in terms of margins. So that helped the evolution of the smaller companies. Now, as counterintuitive as that might seem, but now also we're now in the realm where we're talking about deregulation, where some of these companies have gotten to the point that they can compete and they're able to take advantage of products like AGO, ATK, TPK, who have been regulated for over the years. So you find the smaller companies now leveraging their scale and their nimbleness to now play in these products and get to a point where they're rivaling the historical majors in this. So this has been a driving factor, and it's going to now remain the driving factor because the tendency is to move towards a deregulated market. And this will allow it now have a more equal playing field. Other factors are like, the juggernaut. I know Madame is here. NMPC Retail has a big influence in the market. I think it was pretty much the first company to demonstrate to the industry that how rapidly you can get to a certain scale. In no time, using all sorts of models, ownership, lease, franchise models, NMPC Retail showed the industry how you can scale up very quickly. And that was a very big factor in the evolution of the market. I'll go into things like Nigerians, similar to you have in the music and Nollywood, Nigerians are accepting the local brands, the Tanas, the what's name, Northwest, Saharas, Enyos, Rain Oil, all these local brands. You find people who in the past would gravitate towards international brands now have accepted the local brands, which has given the courage for newer brands to participate. So this has been a very big and significant factor in the evolution of the industry, similar to the other industries I mentioned of Nollywood and the music industry. Then another thing that's encouraging more participation, I mentioned the PIB or the anticipation of the PIB, because with government stepping away from some of the more its involvement in some of the more operational or market activities, there will be a space created for a lot of people to partake in the industry. So that will drive the evolution. Then, of course, lastly, the divestments. The industry has gone through a lot of divestments with companies, the multinationals selling shares, some other companies being bought, some mergers, some acquisitions. So this is becoming a trend in the industry that will help drive the evolution of the industry going forward. Now, with that context, next slide, please. We can now look at what is happening right now in the short term, the areas of competition and how important they are. These areas are actually happening now and will continue going forward into the middle/long term. We're having mergers and acquisitions. Now, scale has become the game. So you find a lot of companies trying to work together to become, or some of the bigger ones buying up the smaller ones, and some of the bigger ones also changing their ownership structures and buying up a company. So this has become a very important competing factor. So when we talk about competition, people tend to look at what is happening in the market space. But in the back end, this is also, you look at a company who might have 10, 15 filling stations. There's a competition for those who might have something like 60 to 80 to merge with them and take themselves to the next level. So this is an area of competition in the industry that players need to pay attention to. Then you have site acquisitions. Also, as part of the growth aspirations, you find a station that's well located and you have 2 or 3 companies lobbying the owner to buy it or to lease it. So there's another level of competition that happens currently in the industry as companies are trying to scale up and prepare themselves for deregulation and ability to now leverage economies of scale. Customer service. The Nigerian consumers are becoming more discerning. They want service. They demand service. So companies that are able to give that level of service are already having a certain loyalty, which would drive them going forward. Customer service is such a vast area, so I won't go deep into it, but we all know what it entails. The another thing that's becoming important is the non-fuels offerings on the stations. You go into a station, and some stations you can just buy fuels. But in other stations, they have a supermarket, they have a lube bay, they have lubricants, they have tires. So all these other things are attractive to the customer. Then you have franchises with the fast food companies. So this is an area of competition where companies are trying their best to get the best back-end offering to the stations, to their customers, rather than just focusing on the fuels. It's happening right now. You go and talk to the franchise fast food company, and you have 3 other of your competitors also talking to them. You talk about investment in clean energy. This is still, though, at its infancy level, has already started. How to offer gas. A couple of the companies are already looking into how to have a solar offering. Then, of course, logistics. a lot of companies' competitive advantage, particularly operations in the north, use their logistics as a major competitive advantage by owning the trucks or adopting models that allow them to have control of the fleet that delivers the product to them. So there's a very strong competitive point. Then, of course, the small diesel deliveries to banks, to homes, is also another point where logistics plays a very key part. So this is what's happening in the space now. That's anybody who is in the industry has to start dealing with these issues right now. But now looking into the future in terms of some of the things probably are going to become more prominent as we go. You now look at areas now, technology. We talk so much about technology, but technology is so many things all wrapped into one. And it's very important that we understand the technology we're going into. One thing that's very key is IoT, the Internet of Things. For the less tech savvy of us, what that simply means, when you talk about internet, what most people understand is you go to your phone, you go to browse, you research, you do this, and you send emails. But IoT is a slightly different thing, where you now have things like your phone, your TV, your car, your house, all interconnected and doing things independently or anticipating your moves through AI. So all these things being networked form a very powerful tool for the retail station where customers can come in and maybe you bought in one station before and you go to another station and the system is able to recognize you as a customer regardless of where you are. So this Internet of Things is very big because it operates without too much human interface. Then you look at areas of, when you want to talk about technology, it's very important you consider the front end and the back end. The back end is how the company are able to manipulate the actual technology. So somebody sitting in office, how is he able to put in data? How is he able to see the data? The front end is what the customer sees. So both are very important because if the customer interface is not good, that technology will fail. And at the same time, if the back end is too complex for people to manipulate, that technology will fail. So you need to look at that very importantly. And I've talked about artificial intelligence, whereby without human intervention, the system is able to take certain decisions and make corrections as it goes to analyze data. And this is also a very strong point where the West have moved, but Nigeria will soon have to become a very serious competition point going forward. In terms of loyalty, it's one of the talking points of this presentation. When you talk about loyalty, now we have simple, you have a card, you get a discount, you get points. That's what we have now. But going into the future, those things are going to become extremely more important, very more targeted. They're going to be cross references. You can buy something from one supermarket and it gives you points to use the filling station and vice versa. So that customers are now brought into a network of companies and services rather than doing it isolated. So the ability to leverage these loyalty programs is going to become more important in the industry as we move forward. Then we have it everywhere else in the world where you have situations where you self-service. You go into a station and you do everything yourself. You don't need to talk to anybody. So this is very important. It's going to become possibly very important in Nigeria where you're able to go into a station, swipe your card, take your fuel, or at least maybe you go to a station and there's just one person who you pay and he directs you to a particular pump. You serve yourself. This will help reduce costs and give the customer more value. These are things we'll probably start seeing going forward. Then we'll also talk about some new things around the evolution of the retail offering. You find now things that happen everywhere in the world coming in, high octane, low octane fuels. You go into stations abroad, you have a choice. Do you want the expensive stuff? Do you want the cheaper stuff? Do you want the one that will do X for your engine or the one that will do Y for your engine? So that variety will come into Nigeria, particularly when the deregulation comes in and the need to make sure you cater to a wider range of customers. So diverse fuel, high octane count would play. Of course, gas is already coming in, gas fuels, LPG, CNG for powering of cars and other things. Electric cars will even soon come in. One thing about Nigeria is the way these things will come into Nigeria. It's you never know. Nigeria is a very funny market. Like our car pool for now is several years behind Europe. However, our GSM network is the same level, if not ahead. So it depends on how the public take on these technologies. They can come tomorrow, or they might come in a several years' time. It's left for us, the marketers, to gauge the appetite and do these things properly. And of course, you find the younger generation too are becoming more inclined to take care of shared mobility, the Ubers and all those brands where the incentive to own a car, the headache is not so much. So you find use of public transportations as the quality improves. So you're going to have to deal with issues around reducing demand, but at the same time, there'll still be some demand. How do you now make sure you are the one who have taken control of that existing demand? Then because of consequence of that, your margins become extremely important. Efficiency, how do you do it better than the other guy? Product sourcing, how do you get your product, your logistics, your hedging tools against pricing. Players now have to do all these things to protect and enhance their margins because the bleed rate might go down, and also the competing other technology, other fuels for gas and electricity might also come into play. And of course, let's not discount people, the capital. And this capital speaks to two, people and money. People become absolutely more important. Highly skilled individuals become extremely in demand. So if you know what you're doing, you've understood the industry, and you have a reputation for performance, you'll be highly in demand. Then, of course, as funds, which are another part of capital, very important, technology is not cheap. So there'll be a competition on where do you get the money from? How do you get it? Who will the banks give it to? Who will investors give it to? So you need to, there's a competition in that regard. So that's the way I see it. I know this is not an exhaustive list, but I try to touch on the ones that will probably be more important or become more relevant in the near future. So I'll be ready for your questions later on, but thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Nnamdi. That was very well done, and thank you for doing your best to keep it within time. And we really appreciate you have given us a number of eye-openers, and we hope that we'll be able to explore this as we progress in this session. We'll now quickly move to our next presenter, Vishal.
Thank you very much. If I could get the presentation slide number 1 on with the video.
This is Thabo. Thabo has just opened a petrol station in his hometown. He quit his job to pursue this business, but he's not an industry professional, so he isn't familiar with the legality and regulations that he needs to follow as a responsible petroleum retailer. Thabo is worried that he may not be able to make a success of his new business. Then he finds out about SAPRA, the South African Petroleum Retailers Association. It is an established entity and a constituent association of the Retail Motor Industry Organization, which has been in existence for more than 100 years. It consists of members who are actively involved in the petroleum retail service station industry. SAPRA is a forward-thinking and solution-driven entity whose aim is to represent the interest of all petroleum retailers in South Africa, assisting them in achieving meaningful transformations that are fair, reasonable, practical, and implementable, to help create a sustainable environment and to make fuel retailing a business of choice for investors and business people. Representing over 750 members, SAPRA collaborates with many government departments and makes sure they hear the little guy's voice. SAPRA members have a more effective say in matters that impact their business. Their strength in numbers give them tremendous bargaining power, and with an additional 7,000 members in the Retail Motor Industry Organization, entrepreneurs like Thabo already have a strong foundation fighting for their rights. A SAPRA representative came to visit Thabo at his service station, and she informed him that not only can SAPRA assist him with learning the technicalities of running his business, they also provide expert help with growing volumes, turnovers, and margins, which will improve the bottom line and return on investment, improving operational efficiency and customer experience. Complying with the many legal and contractual, health, safety and security regulations. Assisting with license renewals and industrial relations. Assisting with staffing issues. Providing cost-effective upskilling and training for employees. Providing expert help and advisory services from legal practitioners, university researchers, and senior industry stakeholders. These benefits are available for all registered SAPRA members. SAPRA provides peace of mind on issues beyond the individual petrol station owner's control so that they can focus on day-to-day operations. They are also a highly reliable source of updates in the petroleum industry, especially on important developments and how these can affect your petroleum retail business. They have an ear on local and international developments like fuel price changes, trend and data analytics, new regulatory announcements, specialist training, and seminars. Thabo was extremely relieved to find SAPRA and signed up to become a member right away. With SAPRA helping him with the technical details, he is now empowered to deal with day-to-day challenges of his new business and now feels confident he is heading for success. Wouldn't you also want SAPRA to cover your back? SAPRA has offices in 6 major regions in South Africa. Call 011 886 6300 or visit www.sapra.co.za to sign up today.
Warm greetings from South Africa, and thank you to the OTL team for having me on this webinar. The video you just watched gives you a good indication of who SAPRA is and what we do. Perhaps before I start, a short tribute to acknowledge all Africans and business owners enduring difficulties, in some case loss of life, as a result of COVID-19. Seek comfort in knowing that the storm will pass. I quote an accomplished South African professor, Professor Bonang Moshale, in a statement where he says, "If your business survives COVID-19, then consider yourself to have made a profit." I guess to some extent this applies to all African citizens as well. From a business perspective, the pace of change and industry transformation witnessed through COVID was the unintended yet necessary evil for business owners to accept that change is real and happening at an exponential rate. Linear growth is fast becoming a theory of the past. What then must business do to position themselves ahead of the proverbial curve? Some stats on the size of the petroleum industry in South Africa: 405 billion rand in annual turnover, 145 billion rands in duties and levies, 6 billion rands in annual payroll, 1 billion rand in income tax, 8.5% of national GDP, and 750,000 direct and indirect jobs, which makes up 4.9% of formal employment. Retail sites in South Africa were mandated to stay open by the South African government from the start of lockdown. This was the start of business unusual. Year on year, April 2020, we observed a drop of up to 70% in fuel sales with a concurrent drop in C-store revenue of 50%. Although operating expenditure was cut as far as possible, on average by about 36%, the losses were unavoidable, as service stations are geared to run at much higher volumes. Other businesses like car washes had to shut down with 100% loss in income. With consumer movement and activity limited to mostly stay at home, this was no surprise and a trend that may be around for the foreseeable future. A SAPRA business continuity plan and risk-adjusted strategy helped strained retailers prepare for these unprecedented times. As a united South Africa, we saw the coming together of stakeholders, Ubuntu style, to unite and offer each other assistance. Slide 2, please. Some challenges faced through COVID: product basket restrictions on essential items in the convenience store, consumers refusing to follow disaster protocols. Staff operations became needs-based, and in some cases, staff were laid off. Operating hour restrictions and curfews. Bakeries and car washes had to shut down. Interpretation of regulations, many conflicting media statements versus the regulations itself. Inconsistent policing and strong-arm tactics to prosecute for non-compliance. Balancing income against saving lives was now a stark reality. Slide 3, please. Challenges faced by industry at large. Illegal retailing activity of petroleum products are on the rise. Theft of petroleum from the pipelines has increased. The regulatory accounting system, which is a system designed to reward the investor, needs relevance testing in this day and age. Independents are growing due to very onerous and demanding franchise-like models. Bank costs are rising and retailers are not adequately compensated for in RAS. There are unreasonable labor demands, and South Africa is still a very strong labor-dominated environment. In the competition space, new site development in areas where demand is flat continues to happen. Independents cannot compete fairly with the oil majors. Alternative fuel dispensed in locations other than retail sites, like electric vehicle charge points in car parks and at casinos. Loyalty programs conceptualized at oil major level makes it very difficult for the retailer to practice in a fairly competitive environment. New entrants with great deals swing consumer spend, and retailers have no control over this. In a recent survey, we found that at least about 30% of consumers would move depending on a new loyalty program. Conditional selling, limited due to a highly regulated trading environment. So, all of the above are indicators of what can go wrong when a state of disaster is declared in a difficult and regulated market. Was this the wake-up call needed for every single business owner to introspect, to reimagine their business model and repurpose operations? Well, if you want to remain ahead of the proverbial curve, then the answer is unquestionably yes. Slide 4, please. The exercise, although somewhat forced, brought about a change culture. Examples of changes experienced during COVID. Retailers found innovative and creative ways to reimagine the business offering. Lean management and profit efficiency became a major focus. Many archaic nice-to-haves were now considered wasteful expenditure. Rotational business operations in small communities where businesses shared operational hours. Now, that's a very unusual act. However, it's interesting given the dynamics. Repurposing your product basket in your convenience store. Regular trips to the likes of Macro became a normal business practice as demand grew on items previously not considered essential. No one could have imagined that the simple filling station of the 1970s would transform into what you see today. In the same way, it's hard for us to conceive what the fuel stations of the future will look like. What we do know, though, is that they'd be strikingly different to what's on offer today. Likely changes to see in the short to medium term. A moratorium on new site developments in the medium term. There are more licenses still being issued daily, and this does not spell well for a constrained existing pool. Consumer spend patterns will change. Repurposing transport requirements or mobility, like previously alluded, may become a reality sooner than envisaged. With a work-from-home model, the impact on fuel sales could be up to 30% on normal volumes. It's in your interest to do a consumer demand study for your specific trading area. This early adopter trend sets the fossil thinkers, and that's pun intended, apart from the millennials. Some examples witnessed on South African freeways, sites between work and home already offering a pharmacy, healthy, unhealthy takeaways, takealot.com, and goods collection points, well positioned to cater for consumers who would normally veer off-route into a shopping mall to obtain supplies. In short, customers can get everything they need without leaving the highway. Fundamental efficiencies in the new world of work versus the old world of work are now being force-tested in real time. Many large corporates are witnessing that outcomes-based work-from-home models work better. Be prepared to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Operational staff must be versatile in multiple roles depending on demand schedules. Labor practices in South Africa still play a vital role in ensuring that employment rate is kept healthy. However, the new world of work is slowly demonstrating that this will change. Fewer staff, versatile in multiple roles, is trending, and self-service forecourts will become a reality. The energy transition towards decarbonization is a reality in the foreseeable future. Just as COVID-19 has shown, so too are market conditions readying themselves for widespread disruption with electric vehicle penetration. In South Africa, costs and ad valorem taxes on electric vehicles still remain or make affordability difficult for the ordinary consumer. However, if policies are relaxed and the world call for greener economies grows, we may witness exponential growth of electric vehicles and/or alternative fuel vehicles. This will require infrastructure change at petroleum sites. Automation and self-service forecourts may become a reality. Could the Amazon Go video you are about to watch become the future of convenience stores at retail sites? If we could have slide 5 and the video, please. Basically, the Amazon Go video talks to a user experience for customers. If you ever get the chance, let's Google it. It's the Amazon Go video. You can YouTube it. It talks to a seamless process, in terms of a customer experience once at the forecourt. It's a phenomenal concept, and I have no doubt that that's going to penetrate into our space as well. So taking out of that, driving longer customer stays at a fuel site will become a business imperative. How will these customers be entertained? What kind of value adds can a petrol station offer in the name of diversity? In fact, the entire model is likely to change to place the customer rather than the car firmly at the center. Slide 6. Where once forecourt stores represented the ultimate inconvenience, tomorrow's customer may expect a fully fledged supermarket, Wi-Fi equipped workstations, hot desks with meet and greet facilities, and meeting rooms. There is a fallacy that Africa remains behind the proverbial curve and will be late adopters to evolution. We have an emerging youth population that is significantly higher than the average in developed economies. These young millennials are well positioned to make Africa a world leader by simply adopting the high-risk, high-reward approach against the low-risk, no-reward approach. The one guarantee we have in life is that change will happen. My advice to all African retailers is to become early change adopters, as early adopters are usually winners. With that, I say thank you.
Thank you very much, Vishal, for sharing your perspective. Interestingly, Nigeria and South Africa have quite a number of things in common. And clearly, in terms of aspirational needs, our needs are the same, and we are moving towards the same direction. Thank you very much. We will now like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Billy, to please give us his presentation. Dr. Billy, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, my dear colleagues. Again, I want to bring felicitations from my team members across Nigeria to everyone, especially OTL, that has made it so very, very interesting to bring about the challenges, the future, and how to move ahead in this industry. I also want to congratulate us at least for making through the COVID season. The fact that we're here on this platform only tells us one thing, that God is kind to us, and I pray that God is kind to Africa and Nigeria, especially our industry. Thank you. Just want to make this presentation and take it on. So this is slide 1. You can go to slide 2. All right, this is just an overview of what Petron is all about. By the way, Petron means Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria. The products being unrefined products, including gas. We are non-profit and we are non-political, and our aims and objectives are very, very clear and simple in our originating legal documents in the registration of businesses and associations. We are there to ensure that petroleum products dispensed at filling stations have accurate measurement of it. This is a critical issue in the whole country, and Petron, which is actually an old organization starting new from 2017, has taken the responsibility to make sure that we close this gap. And we do hope that this becomes very profitable for the Nigerian economy. We try to make sure that we ensure that the quality of product is as approved by NNPC and GPL to ensure that artificial fuel scarcity is complete with retail outlets. And also all the licensed sales and storage facilities as approved by the Department of Petroleum Resources. We try to make sure that our members are not suffering. We have a very strict rule on how we apply this. We try to reach all the tax agencies, the federal government, federal inland revenue, state inland revenue, local government, and all possible tax authorities for us to justify and clarify what is required. And since Petron started this, we have taken out the issue of multiple taxation for retail outlets. So if you're a retail outlet owner, you're a major marketer, you're an NNPC retail outlet, so long as you're a member of our association, we speak for you and we make sure that you have the benefits. And that is what has been going on in the last 6 months. Next slide. We'll continue about Petron, just to let you know that our aims and objectives are all there. And I don't need to belabor you there because you have the slides, so you can always go over the slides and understand what our objectives are. Critical among this is the abuse that all retail outlets suffer from military, paramilitary, and uniformed associations or organizations who make it a penchant and a habit to just drive into the retail outlets and just ask for petroleum products to be dispensed, whether it's gas or it's petrol or it's kerosene or it's diesel, and just drive away, not minding that that is income that's lost that will impact on the continuity of our business. Petron is also taking care of that. Our next slide, our membership is made up of owners of licensed. Next slide. Our membership is made up of owners of licensed petroleum product retail stations, like I said earlier, owners of other government-approved petroleum selling outlets, government licensed individuals to accompany petroleum storage in Nigeria, in the whole nation, and leased and licensed petroleum product stations. Basically, there are a lot of licensed stations that maybe for one reason or the other, the owners are not running them and they decide to lease them out. So these lease stations are also our members because we look out also for them. Next slide. The introduction of the subject at hand, independence, it's a very, very critical and on time theme. And I want to congratulate the organizers of this program for that. Of course, the business landscape of the petroleum sector is becoming increasingly uncertain and unpredictable in Nigeria. What makes this sector much more challenging is that many of the factors that directly affect profitable retail operations are beyond the direct control of the retail stations and their owners. Protecting the consumer against dishonest retailers has always been a challenge. The role of technology in petroleum retailing needs to be explored very adequate in a way that this encompasses the interest of the multiple stakeholders, namely the suppliers, in this case, NNPC, PPMC, importers of petroleum products from the different tank farms, the retailers, which is us, and also the consumers, which includes all of us, because all of us consume the petroleum products. The role of artificial intelligence in petroleum retailing, which is now a very critical subject, is very, very important. Most of our members, most of Petron members, some members have retail outlets up to 140. Some have retail outlets with just 2, some 15, some 30, some 3. In that numbers in various correlations, depending on how the business source perform and expand profitably. Now, we all know now in this season that the analog method of managing the petroleum sector is not just only cumbersome, but it is prone to losses. So basically, the role of artificial intelligence cannot be overemphasized. It is something that is required in this season and this time. We are not losing sight of that, as Petron members have gathered together to already start a process to develop technology to drive the management of, even from the sourcing of funds to the actual retailing and the recycling of that fund back to the bank. So we are already right now working on the digital platform that is going to network between the bank, the depots, the logistic companies, the retailers, and even the consumers, so that we can even discourage cash transactions in all our retail stations across the whole country. So the role of artificial intelligence is very critical, and we hope that every one of us on this platform will collaborate together to ensure that we succeed in building this level of technology to ensure that everybody involved is subscribed to it. In a market where prices have almost uniform factors such as convenience. Basically, what we're trying to say here is that at the end of the day, we know that petroleum retail marketing is a very, very critical subject in economic development, because everything that we do ends up with some requirement of energy. So whether it is your fuel station itself requiring gas-powered plant or fossil fuel generators, or your car that is taking you from one point to the other to work at the other, or your relaxation at home, or you're working very comfortably in an air-conditioned environment, you need the petroleum product that is retailed by Petron members. So basically, the key, I don't know which, okay, we've gone to the next slide, which is key objectives of the retail outlet. I was just saying, if you flat back, you'll see we were talking about the market segmentation and the market share. Just like South Africa just went through the process of SAPRA, Petron, in similar ways, are doing just similar things like SAPRA for Nigeria. And we are advocating for a deregulated sector, a fully deregulated sector that is going to help in ensuring that prices, are determined by market forces of demand and supply. This will do quite a lot of things. It will create opportunities for job creation. The GDP as it is today will be measured more efficiently and correctly in this sector. We also do know that government in the last few months have been talking about the regulation. We support them. We support the fact that subsidy regime has come to an end, and it's very, very critical that the regulation is now set in place. The key objectives of the retail outlets is simply to retain and increase market share, to optimize profitability at point of sale by reducing operation costs throughout the supply chain, optimize gas station network, manage and reinforce customer perceptions for right quality and quantity, improve customer experience at the forecourts, establish supplementary revenue stream using the same infrastructure, retain and gain loyal customers through brand building and promotional campaigns. Of course, Petron does that for our members all through the country. We do as much as we try as much as possible to ensure that our members have clear understanding of what the standards are. And for that reason, we have very, very strong stakeholder meetings with weight and measures, the Department of Petroleum Resources.
I think it would be a good time to have Mrs. Elizabeth Aliuda come to give us her presentation.
Okay, thank you. So this paper is on independence and the new frontiers of competition in fuel retailing. Outline of the presentation, we'll briefly look at take an overview of the Nigerian economy, petroleum retailing in Nigeria, strategies of independent marketers. We'll also look at the new areas of competition, including cleaner energy sources. An overview of the Nigerian economy as at the second quarter of 2022 shows GDP at about 34 trillion naira. Crude oil production at 1.8 million barrels per day. Our oil reserve at 36.9 billion barrels. PMS, DPK, AGO consumption was at a total of 71 million liters per day. PMS being the highest quantity at 56 million liters per day. The oil and gas sector of the economy contributed about 9% to the GDP of the country, 65% to government revenue, and 88% to foreign exchange. There are three major sectors in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, namely the upstream, midstream, and downstream. Nigerian state owns 4 refineries with a combined capacity of 445,000 barrels per day, though these refineries are currently undergoing maintenance. So petroleum products are currently being imported into the country for this reason. The Dangote refinery is expected to come on board at before the end of next year, 2021. And we could recall there was a partial deregulation of the downstream sector in 2016. And this year, March 2020, there was a full deregulation of this sector. And the two major players in the sector, independent marketers in Nigeria, was 29,197 stations, with the independents having 25,270 stations. While the major marketers are more established brands, the independents in the last few years have established their footprint through rapid expansion by constructing state-of-the-art retailing outlets and offering a wide range of products and services to the customers. So this has brought a lot of dynamics in the downstream sector, as was previously highlighted by the earlier speakers. So we look at the key demand drivers of the petroleum retailing in Nigeria. The first goes to the numerous vehicles that are plying the Nigerian roads. We had, as at 2018, 12 million registered vehicles in Nigeria. The second driver is the micro, small, and medium enterprises. There are about 41 million of these small businesses, all requiring petroleum products to keep their business running. The third major driver is household energy demand. We have all sorts of generators and sizes of generators due to lack of adequate supply of the public power. So we look at the majors and independents, the independents that have made giant strides in the last few years in the country. The number of stations of both the majors and independents increased considerably since 2016 when there was the partial deregulation of the market, as the new entrants participated fully, taking position in the deregulated market. So competition became very stiff, and since then the majors have struggled to retain their market share and is still struggling to retain and increase such market share. And these are due mainly to the independents that have become very strong because of access to products. They've been involved in rapid expansion of their stations, and so we have key independents as AA Rano, Shafa, Eternal Oil, Govas, and the rest of them, gaining substantial market share in the country. Also, the participation of the independents in the entire value chain of the downstream sector is attributed to their current rise and grabbing of more market shares. Not left behind is Dapman, that have taken forward integration to play adequately in the downstream sector. So next slide, please. So some of the strategies adopted by the independent marketers, like I mentioned, include aggressive network expansion and strategic location of their stations. They've also adopted the offering of credit sales to some selected customers in order to boost sales and offer low price strategy in order to gain more share in the market while maintaining very low overheads among others. And as we are all aware, the retail business is a volume business, and so the lower your overheads, the better profit margin for the business. So where has all this led us to? It has led to the consumers having more opportunity to choose where to buy and fuel their cars. However, following the increase in the price of petroleum products due to the regulation and devaluation of the Naira, consumer demand pattern is indeed changing. And this is affecting the demand patterns of the consumer and also detrimental to the petroleum marketers. As consumers are adopted to carpooling, there are more consumers involved in this carpooling. Consumers now have made more conscious efforts in terms of their trips that are engaged on. They have increased the use of technology for communication instead of driving. And of recent, The impact of COVID-19 has increased the need to and the opportunity of working remotely. All this impacting on the demand for this product. Next slide, please. So technology is the new business enabler that will give companies competitive edge to forge ahead in this environment. So I see new areas of competition being in innovation. As mentioned earlier, we anticipate to see more of the self-dispensing pumps at the stations in no distant future. Automated downstream system, including the forecourt controllers, like service station retailing app, more use of automatic tank gauges will increase. Automobile solutions such as fleet management services will also come on board. And as we speak, e-commerce is already on the increase. So these are the new innovations, amongst others, that will enable businesses to compete adequately. Another area of innovation, is the artificial intelligence that is geared to improve retail operations. So the use of artificial intelligence to capture behavioral patterns of customers that visit stations, their pattern of purchase, their peak shopping periods, etc., to improve businesses will be adopted by the marketers. Likewise, the use of CCTV for identification and prevention of destructive behaviors at the station in order to bring secure environment to the business and to the customers will be on the rise. So as competition becomes stiffer, companies have adopted and some are adopting these strategies to retain their customers. There is more focus on loyalty card, enhanced service deliveries to the customers, offering of priority service to loyal customers at the forecourt is now being explored. Offering of credit services to customers, amongst others. So next slide, please. As the industry transits to cleaner energy, we are aware that there have been numerous calls for cleaner energy globally, with various countries coming up with dates that internal combustion engine vehicles will no longer be allowed in their respective countries. And this portends some long and short and long-term benefits for countries like Nigeria, with low adoption rates and poor infrastructure. We have witnessed worldwide the increase in production and sales of electric vehicles. This has increased from 110,000 in 2012 to 4.7 million vehicles in 2019. Similarly, there is a high increase in number of hybrid cars in Nigeria, which is gradually taking its hold too in the country. So we see that there has been increased investing in LPG, CNG, LNG, in auto gas infrastructure. We have also seen globally the increase in plug-in electric vehicle infrastructure worldwide, an increase in solar power infrastructure for powering homes and offices. And that's also taking roots here in Nigeria. So as the world transits to cleaner energy, this is an opportunity for the Nigerian downstream sector to key into in order to become relevant and also take the market early than being a late entrant. Other sources of cleaner energy we have includes the biofuels, solar, wind, and hydro, which businesses can key into. The auto gas powered vehicles and the initiative by the federal government in this area is something to talk about, because that would give us the opportunity to take advantage of the gas powered vehicles initiative that is being brought to light and spearheaded by the federal government. As we all know, the downstream sector is always evolving. Therefore, to survive the stiff competition, especially in a deregulated environment, and to remain relevant in the industry, all players must be innovative in product and service deliveries. We must embrace the use of technology to compete adequately and grow our market shares, retain the customers, and increase profit margins for our stakeholders. We must also gradually prepare for transition to cleaner energy sources by acquiring the right infrastructure. So I want to sincerely thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aliuda, for that very engaging presentation. And thank you for giving us the perspective from the regulator and government side. I think we've benefited from the insight provided, and we are really much appreciative of your contribution. And I thank technology for cooperating with us so that we were able to go through your entire presentation. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, moderator.
Okay, so we will try to manage time. We will take one follow-up question for each of the presenters, and they will speak for 3 minutes. So it's important for the presenters to keep to time. Please, I'm begging you. And so that we can manage time effectively, we still have to bring in the audience to take a few questions from the audience. So the order in which we'll go back to Dr. Nnamdi. Dr. Nnamdi, please, if you can, in 3 minutes, drill down a bit more on your presentation and give us an idea how your company, Etana Oil, Etana PLC, intends to bring about this transition from where we are into the future that we are all looking to be.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question, I mean, as a company at Etana, we've always tried to be proactive in what we do in terms of keeping with the market or even being ahead of the market. Like as I said during my presentation, in terms of the carpool in Nigeria, we're a little bit behind the rest of the world, but that's now no guarantee as to what is to come. Just like in terms of this deregulation, ahead of the deregulation, one of the challenges it will pose to marketers is the ability to change your prices quickly, depending on what's happening at what competition is doing, your current costs. So before it even became an issue, we're really going ahead to invest in the technology that allows us to change prices per nozzle, should we choose. So if we want different nozzles in our stations to sell at different prices, we already have the technology to do that and implement those prices in a matter of minutes. And now we move to a system where government now went to the modulated pricing model before the current deregulation we're now going through. So we've invested ahead to make sure we're prepared. And just like all the other things covered today in terms of new renewable technology, alternate power sources, AI, all those things, we've invested heavily in an online ERP. We've done we're investing, like Madam mentioned, also in ATGs. We're working with our transporters to see how we can now do pretty much metered discharging. So we're already ahead of those things, trying to prepare for when before they become mainstream. And I think that philosophy has served us well, and it's one of the things that has fueled the growth of the company, trying to always be ahead of the curve.
Thank you very much, Nandi, and for making it brief as well. We appreciate that. We would like to move on to Vishal. After we hear from Vishal, we'll move on to Dr. Billy. So Dr. Billy, please be prepared. I know your presentation was cut short. I would like to give you an opportunity to wrap up on your presentation. So instead of asking you a question, so please be ready. Vishal, please. I know Nigeria and South Africa, we are brothers and partners, and sometimes at the economic level competitors. And sometimes some of us like to say that South Africa is one step ahead of Nigeria. Is there anything from the South African experience concerning this transition that you think that Nigeria can benefit from? Maybe one or two points that you think Nigeria can benefit from the South African experience.
Okay, thank you. Being totally cognitive of time and respecting the fact that Dr. Bully still has to go, I'll try and keep this one as short as possible. Perhaps the one key point is, we have a regulated market which guarantees a return on investment, safeguarding the investor. There are specific guided thresholds developed for the retailer to operate within. So perhaps that's the first point. The second one is South Africa still has a very reasonable level of compliance and policing that happens through the relevant authorities. Of late, specifically through the COVID period, from March up to current, we saw that social media has helped create awareness of non-compliance issues. Basically spreading the footprint for reporting issues, all the way from the consumer observing, for argument's sake, pipeline theft or untoward activity and so on and so on. So that has helped to some extent, a fairly developed social media network. And of course, the last one I would talk on is developed economy benchmarking, which has become the state of play for the associations and the oil companies of late. Driving thought leadership into the retail network. Like I mentioned in the presentation, I think early adoption of the changing environment positions you well to be ahead of the curve, and that's what we seem to have done quite well recently. In terms of the changing environment, we've seen physical examples of retailers starting to embrace the change and starting to bring in models that are talking to developed economies and where the trend is going. So yeah, there you go. That's my answer. I wouldn't give you a very specific direct between Nigeria and South Africa, but that's the way we've progressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victor. That was very helpful and insightful from our side. Thank you very much. So we'll quickly move on to Dr. Billy to wrap up his session. Doctor, if you don't mind, we'll just ask that you do this within 3 minutes, please, so that we can take questions from your understanding.
All right. Thank you so much. I didn't quite realize that I was even caught up because I wasn't here for the, I wasn't communicating with anybody, so I just had to stay quiet. All right, thank you. Basically, you already have at least a clear enough presentation that I have rigged up from my team, and I would really like all of us who are there to use it. But for the benefit of participants across the country and everywhere else, Petron is filling the gap to ensure that all retail outlets are efficient, they are protected, and there is a communication between the consumers, the retailers, and also the suppliers, namely the NNPC, PPMC, the tantrums, and so on. And we are already developing some level of technology intervention to ensure that there is a bridge between these and communication is efficient and consistent. The other thing that is critical here is that we are making sure as an association that all our members are operating within the ambit of integrity. They are also going to be able to follow through with rules and regulations that are set by the government. And for this reason, we indeed listened to Itana, and I'm very, very happy. Itana is part of our members. I do see how much intervention will work with them in River State. I hope that every Itana station in the country will also benefit from the interventions of Petron. So also the NNPC retail outlet. We basically, when I listen to every presentation I've made, we are all looking forward to the same thing. Seamless way to work, ease of doing business, cutting the costs in ensuring that our cost in providing services at the last end of the retail chain is efficient and effective, and that there is a clean environment. As an association, we are there ready to collaborate, to be of assistance to every retail owner, regardless of what space you play. Because at the end of the day, every retail outlet has similar problems, whether it's with the authorities or with the government or with uniformed officers or theft or fraud. So some of the artificial intelligence we have offered to our members, which we believe that will be coming up, but I'm hearing quite a lot of advancement already made by some of my colleagues here on the platform. I'd like to share notes with them and know how what they've done could be deployed on our platform, or how we can all collaborate together, because at the end of the day, the more the merrier. And the more together we are, the stronger, which is what Petron is all about, stronger together. So I want to thank you all, and I'm encouraged that you try to go through my slides, so I don't take too much time to be able to address them. But we have, as an association, taken the bull by the horn, and also the bull itself, to make sure that we intervene and provide all the enabling environment to ensure that all retail outlets are secure, they are profitable, and they can access petroleum products as fast as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Billy, for keeping it short and simple. We appreciate you, and we appreciate your time. I think it's time we move to the Q&A section, and for the benefit of our viewers across the world and in Nigeria, there are each of the presenter sent slides, and I believe the organizers will find a way to share these slides with you in the event that we are unable to answer all your questions or address all the issues. You will get the slides and you have a deeper understanding of the issues that were discussed. And so we will open the dashboard now to take questions. And if you want to ask a question and you're in the audience, please indicate by show of hands, and I will invite you to the stage to ask your questions. And please, just for clearness, efficiency, if you're asking a question, let your phone be on silence if you can't put it off, and also keep your question simple and short, not more than, it shouldn't take more than 30 seconds to ask your questions. And then most importantly, I think that you should keep it short, please. And the responses, depending on the nature of the question, will also be short. We have Mr. Emeka Akabogu, and I think Mr. Emeka Akabogu, if you can hear me, I've invited you to ask your question. Okay, there is no question so far from the audience, which is very good for us. So what that does is it gives us an opportunity to wrap up. And so can I use this opportunity to invite the esteemed speakers again to give their closing thoughts. So I would like to start with Mr. Nnamdi. Please give us in 1 minute your parting shots, your famous last word.
Okay, thank you, Ida. Just to round up, nothing too complex. I think we've talked a lot today, but I'd just like to say that the industry, though going through a lot of challenges this year and in the past couple of years, is still an extremely important part of the Nigerian economy. And if the right things are done, it would play a bigger role in terms of taking the country forward. The future is bright if we do the right things when we need to do them, invest upfront with the current changes in regulation and the direction the government is going. I think the real major issue holding the industry back is a problem that's actually national problem, which has to do with forex availability. But with local production, a lot of that dependence will go away. Then the industry should be able to thrive even more. So for anybody who wants to get in the downstream, the future is bright, but I'll just like to make an appeal that to help things work better, let us cooperate in operations and compete in the market. That way, I think we'll have a stronger and healthier industry for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nnamdi, for the wrap up. Can I also ask Vishal to give us his parting shots?
Okay, thank you very much, Inam. I'm going to bounce back to one of the points that I made in the presentation, and that is that we have an emerging youth population in Africa that is significantly higher than the rest of the world. And to a large extent, Africa has been seen as a not so developed economy, when you compare to the developed economies in the rest of the world. Let's move forward, leveraging all these opportunities that we have in the millennial space. Let's start to develop these relationships. Let's collaborate more, and let's set ourselves apart from the rest of the world in how we drive, call it joint ventures, inter-country within Africa, and really start to accelerate forward. We have everything, at our disposal, from resources to ability to everything else that goes with it. So yeah, thank you very much for opening up this opportunity. For me, it was wonderful, and warm regards from South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vishal. It's a pleasure to have you, and we look forward to future interactions that we've always done with your team in South Africa. And let me see if I can invite, let's say, there are still hands up in the audience. Let me still see if I can invite someone to come in. If not, we'll continue with the wrap-up. I would like to move on. Dr. Billy, please, do you have your parting words?
Okay. I can say pretty much I'm very, very delighted to be on this program, and I'm very humbled for this invitation. Petron as an association is ready to serve the goods of Nigeria. Our membership, the retail outlets, they form the last bastion of the frontier. We are the most critical, last mile of the industry. And we do advocate that everyone who has spoken on this platform, from the major marketers to the independent marketers to NNPC retail, would like to have a very strong commonality in terms of strategy on how to work together. And like Dr. Namdi said, let us work together collaboratively. In Petron, the word is stronger together. And we want to encourage all of us to stay stronger together so that we can make the industry beneficial to the common Nigerian and grow our economy. In everything we have said here, the most critical thing is for us to have a regulatory presence that is listening and is willing to sit down, dialogue, and come with solutions that will grow this segment of the economy. I want to thank everyone for listening. God bless us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Billy, and we appreciate your time, and we thank you for everything that you have put into this. And then definitely not the least, we would like to ask Mrs. Elizabeth Aliyuda to give her closing thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. And it's been a great pleasure to have this opportunity of participating in the 2020 OTL conference. My parting shot will be on re-emphasizing the need for all marketers to take opportunity in the downstream sector. There are so much opportunities that is out there, which has been reeled out today. So we quickly take opportunities of this to key into those areas that will increase our market shares and make us sustainable in the long term. One of the opportunities that comes to mind is the current government pronouncement on the use of auto gas, natural gas and its derivative. This is a welcome development for the industry to transit to cleaner energy, as well as offer the customers alternative energy sources, in addition to the traditional PMS and AGO. So this will be a good time for the industry to invest in infrastructure and sale of the products at the filling stations. So this is an opportunity that will add value to the participants in the downstream, as well as adding value in enriching the lives of the customers and Nigerians in general. So I want to thank you for this opportunity, and the collaboration in the downstream sector is highly commendable, considering the fact that the industry is large enough to accommodate everybody. So I am very happy that this collaboration continues to exist, and we'll all put hands together to make sure that we not only expand our businesses, but bring that added value to the lives of our customers. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Madam. We really appreciate your presence. Aliyuda, the Managing Director, NNPC Retail, we appreciate you immensely, and we thank you for the perspective that you have brought to the issue. Mr. Nnamdi Obiago, the CEO, Itana PLC, we thank you also for putting your shift and giving us your valuable perspective as well. We also thank Mr. Vishal Premlal, all the way from South Africa, for giving us your perspective from the South African front. And then definitely not the least, Dr. Billy Sotubo Gillis Harry, also for giving us your perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, across the world, you have heard the different perspectives from the regulator, from the operator, and from the consumers of the energy. And you've heard about the future that is so promising that we are all heading into. We hope that it will be a bright future for everyone, and that Nigeria, and indeed Africa, will transit from its current state into a state where everyone will look at us and say, whatever you find in America, you'll find in Africa, or whatever you find in Europe, you'll find in Africa. And then most importantly, I believe all of this, the end game is employment for our teeming population and opportunity to invest for our teeming investors, both local and foreign. Thank you very much for your time and your patience. My name is Inam Wilson again. I'm a partner with Templars, a full-service law firm based in Nigeria. Goodbye and God bless you. Thank you.